We are live.
Having heard that and noting that it is 7 p.m., it is time to call the Monday, June 5th, 2023 Westfield, Washington Township Advisory Plan Commission meeting to order. If staff would please confirm the presence of a quorum.
Ms. Bergman?
Here.
Mr. Deck?
Here.
Mr. Horkay?
Here.
Mr. Johns?
Here.
Ms. Keller?
Here.
Mr. Maui? Mr. McCarty?
Here.
Mr. Schmitz?
Here.
And Ms. Spoljarek?
Here.
We have a quorum. Moving on. Agenda is as posted, so it's time to move on to the approval of the minutes of our May 15, 2023 meeting. Is there a motion to approve these minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from May 15th, 2023.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second. This is Kelleher.
I think Kristen beat you to it.
Okay.
So we have a motion from Matt Deck, seconded by Kristen Berkman. If staff would please call the roll, because we have virtual attendees as well as present in-house attendees.
Ms. Bergman?
Yes.
Mr. Deck?
Yes.
Mr. Horkay?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
Ms. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
And Ms. Spoljarek?
Yes.
Motion passes. Minutes are accepted. It's time now for staff to review the APC rules and procedures for tonight's meeting, which includes a handful of consent agenda items and one public hearing.
So as follows are the procedures for public hearing items. For items requiring a public hearing, tonight's meeting has the following structure. The department will summarize the petition, then the petitioner will be given up to 15 minutes to present to the Plan Commission. The president will open a public hearing. Individuals will be given 3 minutes to speak. Those representing a group will be given 5 minutes to speak. Only one member of the group will be given 5 minutes to speak. For efficiency purposes, we ask that those representing a group speak first. The public hearing will be closed when all interested members of the audience have had a chance to be heard and all emails received during the meeting have been provided to commission members. The petitioner will then be given 10 minutes to respond to comments without interruption, and the commission will follow any comments, questions, or concerns regarding the petition. This may include additional discussion with the petitioner. Please do not disrupt the proceedings in any way. If you need to have a private conversation, then we ask you to please quietly exit the room. Please silence your devices at this time. If you must answer them, then please quietly exit the room. If you are attending in person and wish to speak in regard to a petition scheduled for a public hearing, then please line up against the west wall once the public hearing is opened. Please sign the speaker sheet as you approach the podium to speak. For efficiency purposes, we ask that those representing a group speak first. During your comments, please state your name and address into the microphone for the record, and we ask that you not repeat previously stated comments. Your presentation will be timed, and you will be advised when there are approximately 30 seconds remaining. If you are not attending in person, comments regarding a petition, they should be emailed to planners@westfield.in.gov with a petition number or petition name or number included in the subject line. Those comments will be forwarded to Plan Commission members and the petitioner. We'd like to remind everyone to please speak directly into the microphone so your comments can be put onto the record. Also, please mute your microphone when not speaking. If you come up to the podium to speak, please ensure that the microphone is on as indicated by the green light at the base. Thank you.
Thank you. I will reiterate the importance of timely typing for the public hearing item if there is anybody that is attending virtually, because we have a consent agenda, but then no items of business, so we should get to the public hearing pretty quick. So, moving on, as indicated, we have 5 items in a consent agenda, all approved as a group because they are approved. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda this evening?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Victor McCarty, seconded by Matt Deck. If staff would please call the roll.
Ms. Berkman,
Yes.
Mr. Deck,
Yes.
Mr. Horkay,
Yes.
Mr. Johns,
Yes.
Ms. Keller,
Yes.
Mr. McCarty,
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz,
Yes.
and Ms. Boljerick.
Yes.
Motion is carried. Consent agenda items are approved. As indicated, there are no items of business, so we are now ready for the public hearing item, 2306-PUD-07, Claiborne Farms, also known as Kimblewick, Phase 2 PUD. Staff can present, and then the petitioner will have an opportunity.
Thank you, President. Good evening, members of the commission. For the record, Ryan Collingwood with the Community Development Department. The item presented before you tonight is the Claiborne Farms Kimblewick Phase 2 PUD. The subject real estate is about 16 acres in size and is located at the southwest corner of Town Road and West 156th Street. This item was introduced at the May 8th City Council meeting and is before you this evening for a public hearing. It has been properly noticed and advertised, and we have received one written comment, which is provided in the public comment exhibit. The petitioner held a neighborhood meeting on May 24th, and a summary of that meeting is also provided as an exhibit. John Debashewitz of Nelson and Frankenberger LLC is here tonight to present details of the project. He is available to answer any questions, as am I, should you have any for staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Debashewitz.
Evening, again, for the record, John Dabashewitz with Nelson and Frankenberger. We represent the petitioner, Pulte Homes of Indiana, and the property owner, Carmel Lutheran Church. Present tonight on behalf of the petitioner is Rex Ramage and Tabitha Kavanaugh with Pulte, as well as Jim Schoeneber, an attorney with our office. The original Kimblewick, named Claiborne Farms PUD District, was originally named, was adopted by the City Council in November 2019, and the matter before you this evening is a public hearing for Phase 2 of Kimblewick. This proposal is to extend and continue the existing Kimblewick residential community on the subject real estate. The location of the real estate, as noted by staff, is located on the west of Town Road. It's contiguous with Town Road. It's outlined in orange on the exhibit on display. The site is approximately, as indicated by staff, 16 acres in size and located just south of 156th Street where it intersects with Town Road. The existing Kimblewick community is approximately 245 acres, which is outlined in yellow, and is located on the west side of Town Road, both on the north and south side of 151st Street. The current zoning of the subject parcel is AGS F1, and it is agricultural in use today. The real estate is surrounded by residential developments, including Westchester and individual single-family homes to the east across Town Road, individual single-family residential to the north, and again, the Kimblewick community surrounds it and is adjacent to the south and to the west. By way of general background, Kimblewick is a Del Webb active adult community anchored by a recently opened multi-million-dollar amenity center, including a 14,000 square foot indoor facility and an extensive interconnecting trail network with significant open space areas. Other amenities include bocce ball, pickleball, community gardens, a fitness center, outdoor kitchen, and a dog park. Further, it should also be noted that the amenities provided in the existing Kimblewick were designed to absorb the development of additional homes. The lots on the additional real estate will be subject to the same covenants and restrictions applicable to the existing Kimblewick lots in order to ensure the shared maintenance cost of all common areas and amenities by residents in the community. Further, Kimblewick is an age-restricted residential neighborhood regulated under the Housing for Older Persons Act of 1995, or HOPA for short, and therefore will contribute no additional school children to the Westfield, Washington schools. The rezone request for the real estate is to create a Phase 2 of Kimblewick by applying the same development and architectural standards to the subject real estate. The request will expand the number of home sites by 43 on the subject parcel. In this regard, the net increase in the total lots within all of Kimblewick will only be 26, as there are 15 fewer homes under development than what was authorized under the original Kimblewick zoning. Enhanced open space and buffers have been concentrated along the north perimeter of the site, as shown on the provided exhibit, as a transition to the adjacent single-family properties to the north. In this regard, overall open space is approximately 30% overall, where the UDO requires only 15%. Additionally, existing trees along the north perimeter of the real estate are planned to be saved and would only be removed if necessary, and only in those locations necessary to accommodate site drainage, which is required to pick up all of the stormwater and convey it into the stormwater pond. By way of identification, along our north perimeter, there would be a swale along this outside of that space that would pick up all stormwater and transmit it here today. Today, it's apparent that stormwater from this location does travel north, but that would, again, need to be picked up and transmitted into the pond. And then there's a draw that comes along this site onto the golf course property that ultimately gets down to the drain that crosses the golf course property. So that stormwater would be transmitted into that draw and ultimately get into the drain that exists on the golf course property and would not continue to the north as it does today. Lots and streets access to the internal site and will be connected to the existing Kimblewick, eliminating the need for an additional public street cut onto town road, therefore limiting an additional point of access onto that street. Pulte is, however, exploring an opportunity to construct a temporary access onto town road for construction traffic that would be removed once construction was completed. Regarding the site design, the external street frontage landscaping will be provided along Town Road, which would be consistent with what's there today. So this is a photograph of areas to the south along the frontage of Kimblewick that exists today. That would be carried forward and moved north to the location adjacent to the lift station, which exists along Town Road at our northeast corner. This next slide includes images of the existing and proposed home product. The proposal will continue to offer a range of homes attractive to homebuyers desiring to downsize into an empty nester age-restricted community. Homes on the real estate will be subject to the same design requirements, covenants, and restrictions applicable to existing homes within the Kimblewick neighborhood. Homes are anticipated to have an average sale price of approximately $400,000 and up. Furthermore, a comprehensive maintenance program will be provided for every lot in the community, as is provided today within Kimblewick. In conclusion, considerable attention has been paid by Pulte to blend the site into the original Kimblewick while providing enhanced buffering along the north property line with widened open space areas as well as additional landscape plantings. Finally, we did conduct a neighborhood meeting a couple weeks ago, and Pulte has since reached out to additional owners of real estate along the adjacent perimeter, and we've had a couple meetings, and they're reaching out and going to have a couple additional meetings on site and are having their engineer stake the property line along the north perimeter so folks can see where exactly that existing tree line falls today. Along that north perimeter, within a 30-foot area, there's an existing sanitary easement, as we have the lift station on that northeast corner of the site. That easement runs along that shared property line to the north. But as I indicated, we would only remove trees to the extent that they were necessary for grading to take care of that stormwater, and then additional trees and plantings would be added pursuant to the ordinance requirements to enhance that buffer area. So with that, I'll conclude. Be glad to address questions the commission may have, of course, either now or at the conclusion of the public hearing.
Thank you. We will go ahead and have the public hearing first. Reminder to virtual attendees, please type quickly and send an email to planners@westfield.in.gov and reference Kimblewick or the petition number in the subject line, and staff will monitor our incoming email. That being said, I will open the public hearing at 7:15 PM. Do we have any signups for speaking at tonight's public hearing?
Yes. So first is Kathleen Guardhouse. Sorry.
Can you hear me okay?
You might want to pull the microphone a little closer and start by stating your name and address for the record.
My name is Kathleen Grothaus. I live at 2584 Ruffian Drive, and my home backs up to the property in question. While those that I'm speaking for are not directly opposed to the rezoning to add to the Kimblewick community, we do have some concerns. The first concern is shared by over 20 of my current neighbors and involves the change in traffic flow that this rezoning will create for us. Residents of all 43 of the proposed new homes will now pass by our homes, entering and leaving the community, more than doubling what we understood the traffic pattern in this area would be. Even more concerning is the construction traffic that will take this path also, effectively sandwiching some of our homes between a pretty consistent parade of construction traffic as we've experienced this past year, and full-on construction in the back of us for a good 3 years. We were told that there can't be a new entrance off Town Road for this area, but a church would have had its own entrance off of Town Road as it's currently zoned. So at the very least, we would ask that there be a temporary construction entrance off Town Road to minimize the disruption of the lives of the already established neighborhood. There are no guarantees that when you buy a home, the circumstances of the property around it won't change, but this is not what we thought we were buying into. Our next concern is that those bordering the property that we're talking about will now be looking into the backs of a fairly densely placed line of homes. The proposed 40-foot buffer is well within legal regulations, but it is much closer than a church or even its parking lot would likely be with zoning as it is. And it's even closer than a lot of the homes in Kimblewick currently are. Pulte has said that they are unable to change the configuration of the homes, but they said they are willing to plant some more trees and shrub and work with us to help increase the buffer there. We would like to mutually agree on a plan in writing for this. And the last thing, the last concern is that all of these houses are of the Keeneland series, which is the lower end cost of the selection, no Belmont or Churchill, the larger homes. So this kind of looks like it's the cheaper end, kind of decreases our property home values. Specifically, you can tell it's really concentrated on that south border. It looks much more concentrated than some of the other areas of Kimblewick, I think. So I'm not sure why only the cheaper homes are in there and so concentrated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you sit down, could you just have staff help you on where these homes you're talking about are up on the screen? Or, sorry, if you want to walk over and point, whatever is easiest.
You can use the mouse here to, if you want to stand here, that may be more helpful.
Whatever's easiest. I'm sorry, I just want a context of you and your neighbors, please.
So I'm down here, I believe. Is that right? 197 is my lot number, and it's right as the street comes in. I'm right to the left of that.
So is there a road up above on this
So
particular?
there's a road that comes in like this. Is that right? Is that the right place? And then there is a house directly in front of the road, one to the right, one to the left. I'm to the left. So all these back here. And really, these are also pretty close together, and not much closer, if anything, of these, but than these are. But
So your backyard to backyard?
Yep.
I'm just struggling with this picture. It looks like there's a road in between them. There's
no,
not.
so there's a 40-foot buffer that belongs to the community, and
Okay.
then we have a backyard and they have a backyard, which 40 feet is more distance than is required. But for what we thought we were doing when we bought these lots, it is much different. And so we will be just looking into back of somebody's home, pretty much.
All
Thank
right,
you.
if we can continue.
Yeah, that answered
Carry
it. Thank
on
you.
with this after the public hearing. I think we've gone far enough in the midst of the public hearing. Is there another speaker queued up, I believe?
Yes, next is Jim Hill.
Yeah, hi, my name is Jim Hill. I'm at 2600 Ruffian Drive, Kathleen's neighbor. So what she was pointing to there, we have like 15 feet between our property lines, each of our homes. On one side of mine, there's 30 because of a drainage ditch that's there. And then, I'm not sure about that berm that's behind us, but it's not a lot of distance. And then our backyard will be to their backyard, was sort of her point. And those houses are closer together than ours are. I think all the Keenelands are closer than that, and they're smaller in their backyard. I want to second the concept of either having a permanent entrance off Town Road, which I think would have been there, as Kathleen pointed out, had there been another building or church or somebody else going there, would have been a permanent entrance off Town Road. And at the very least, a construction entrance needs to be put there, so we don't have all that traffic for 2 or 3 years coming down the road. Because we're almost done on our road coming in, and we've lived through that for the last year or two already, so we'd like to maybe not have to do that for another 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Philip Fracula. Apologies there.
It's okay. I've been called much worse.
Tried my best.
Thank you. My name is Phil Fricola. On the map, just the bottom right corner, the house right off of that on Manning Way. I'm on the board at Westchester, the HOA, but I'm here in my personal capacity. We've had a lot of construction debris blowing over from all the construction, Curtin and Del Webb, and even I think from the Epcon community to the south. And I have not heard much in the community meetings about the mitigation effects that they're doing, what they're actually doing to mitigate that. If they're doing what they're doing, it seems like it's insufficient for what, making zero impact. We've had to go through a lot of expense, and it's been very disappointing to see that. So hopefully they can have a better plan for this if it goes through. And in addition, I would like to recommend that if they do make a construction path, at the end of construction, it's converted into a walking path so people can access that. It's a nice valuable amenity in the area. They already have everything graded, put up some bollards or something so people cannot, drive over it. And it would, raise the property values even more in this community. If they're going through the effect and the work of making the construction entrance, let's have a lasting positive impact from it. So it could hook right into the walking paths that are already right there off of Town Road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Matt Bohm.
Hello, thank you. This is the first time I've ever spoken at one of these.
If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Oh, my name is Matthew Baum, 15630 Town Road. I am 2 houses to the north of this proposed development, and I just wanted to come and say that the plan that we're looking at here, we were contacted by Mr. Ramage, who I believe is a representative of the Pulte Group. And Mr. Ramage and an associate of his met with my neighbor and I regarding a lot of things. Number one, regarding the buffer to the north, and possibly expanding that, not expanding the buffer, but expanding the buffer, but possibly enhancing the buffer. And then we were also shown a revised drawing that could be a possibility to change the layout of the homes that are directly kind of backing up to the north, to possibly increase the buffer from 40 to 55 feet to kind of protect those single-family homes that are to the north. And I do apologize. My voice is a little shaky. I'm not a great public speaker. Regarding the construction entrance that has been floated, it is not present on this drawing, but on the secondary drawing that we saw with the enhanced buffer and the re-layout of the homes, the construction entrance was there. It was directly south of the lift station. I kind of have some concerns regarding that. Number one being the increased traffic at that heavy intersection at 156th and Town. as well as the lift station there. Sometimes city employees will park at that lift station, whether it be larger vehicles, trailers for maintenance, or things like that. Wondering what kind of a backup that would cause, or a danger that would cause for traffic coming off of 156 and people sadly speeding on Town Road. And then the construction entrance itself, what it would be comprised of if it were to be constructed. If it is gravel, the dust would be greatly increased, especially to the homes to the north. So those are our concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Jack Anderson.
Jack Anderson of 15606 Town Road, so the lot directly to the north that currently borders the cornfield. I think most of the things that we've discussed have been addressed. One of the things that we proposed, which would be of benefit to us, is the sidewalk that currently runs along the west side of Town Road, extending that past the lift station right to the property boundary, just so that it was more accessible to us, give us greater access to Town Road, especially with the proposed developments down at 146th Street. And yeah, obviously the drainage as well. Currently, quite a lot of water pools on the property line to the west of the lift station. So obviously making sure that that was addressed so that it didn't make the problem worse.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Do we have any other speakers signed up?
Yep, one more on the docket. Patrick Heitz. Apologies.
I'm Patrick Heights, 2605 West 159th Street. This is my 14 acres right here, borders to the north. Part of my concern is the density. I don't know what the rest of Del Webb density is, but the lots seem really small. I don't think we need to continue to increase the housing in Westfield. I think that, has anyone looked at these lots compared to the other lots in the subdivision to see how large they are? Is there something that could be done about that? Then my other big concerns obviously is the draining. It's been discussed quite a bit. I think that we need to have some type of a civil drawing or something. There's some discussion about removing some of the trees, but if it's a high pressure sewer line that goes through the back, if they're not going to be tying into that, if they're going to go to their existing system, I don't see any reason why they need to cut down any of the existing trees. The third thing was they talk about the landscaping installment with mounding and 4-foot boards. Buffers continue around the north perimeter, but he's just going around the sewer pumper plant. Would it be that difficult to put some mounding or some avenue so we don't have to worry about drainage going back through the property to the north? So I just think we need to look into these things before we continue to approve these items. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the last signed up speaker. Is there anybody else in the room that has heard anything that has prompted them to want to speak as well? And a reminder to anybody that might be attending virtually, if you haven't already, send a note. It's urgent that you do so now to planners@westfield.in.gov, and we'll add your comments to the record should there happen to be any. There's been ample time to type, and there doesn't seem to be anybody in the room. So I will go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:29. So if Mr. Dobashewitz can come back and address the comments from the notes he's taken.
There were several comments. One with regard to the transition here between the existing lots within Kimblewick and these lots. The proposed lots are a little bit deeper. They'll need to accommodate stormwater swale on the backside here to pick up that stormwater and transmit it into the pond. But there's approximately 25 to 30 feet in the rear yards of these lots. There's the 40-foot buffer that exists today, and then there'll be another approximately 25 to 30 feet before you get to those. So the distance between the dwellings will be roughly 90 to 100 feet between the homes within the existing area and these homes here. And as was indicated by the member of the public who spoke, Rex Ramage and Dave Compton with Pulte are going to reach back out to them and go over specific landscaping and the location for those plantings when, before we appear back in front of you for a committee or a workshop meeting at a later date. With regard to, one of the comments was made about if a church were to locate on the property and the transition there, the transition adjacent to a church would actually be less than what's required in this situation. There'd be would be a 30-foot buffer there with landscaping material in that space. But again, the comment about whether that's ball fields or not, but it's for surface parking and a much presumably larger building. The number of proposed lots along the south perimeter, I believe, is one more than the number of lots along the north perimeter within the existing, just as a matter of providing that example. And then along our north perimeter, we would tie into the area of the lift station and not the force main. And the grading that would be done, or the transition and grade there that may cause the removal of a couple trees, would be for us to pick up the stormwater that today runs north. So this area in here drains south today, or excuse me, north today across Mr. Height's property. And in order to eliminate that and collect the stormwater internally, we may need to grade right along the north perimeter here to pick up that stormwater and pull it back to the south and transmit it into swales and take that off-site. Another question or suggestion was the material of the temporary access and its condition after we were to close that off. The plan that we're exploring is for an asphalt cross-section. It wouldn't be a gravel cross-section. And the plan would be to try to the extent possible, and if we can, tie in a pedestrian connection and make it, once it's closed off, it would become a pedestrian connection internal to the neighborhood over to the path along Town Road. The other piece was, today this lift station in the fenced-in area, if you're familiar with the location, is rather close to the existing Town Road. And we were asked to consider taking the path behind that and terminating here at the adjacent property, the Anderson's property to the north, which is in that modification's in the works. As it was described by one of the other speakers, in addition to that, the way this two cul-de-sacs lay out today, there's lots that fan off of those, and the result is the rear of houses that would be addressing the property to the north. And the plan that Pulte is examining and has prepared and shared that drawing with adjacent neighbors would be for all the lots to face generally east-west. So they're facing the internal to the street, so one side, every dwelling is facing that way, so you have less activity or windows and light sources and other activity that would be present to that. It expands the buffer by approximately 15 feet to the north as well. So you're only dealing with one side yard rather than multiple rear yards where people have outdoor living space and other activity. Helps create some additional privacy for those owners to the north, and that's being explored. The sidewalk. And then also there was a comment with regard to density and the overall plan. The overall plan for Kimballwick in total is 2 homes per acre. And with the additional 26 lots and the 16 acres here, the overall density would come down to a number. I didn't even do the math. It's like 1.989. So to the extent I can say it's less, it's less. But we're not hanging our hat. This is a plan that works with and transitions well. We're not hanging our hat on a density number. We're doing something that responds favorably to the existing Kimballwick community and creates a much enhanced transition along this north property line.
John, isn't part of that PUD though one lot per acre for the certain part that's more rural?
Yeah, if overall it's 2, but if we look at this plan, and we can bring another image to the committee meeting, if you start up here at this corner and work south and west, generally, that was the area on the comprehensive plan that's identified as rural southwest, and we were asked to provide enhanced buffering along this perimeter in particular, as well as the perimeter here, and along this edge to help create that edge that would be the area that's between rural southwest to our west and this development, whereby you have an area that's 1 home per acre as we travel along this west perimeter, but this site's removed from that by the existing area of Kimballwick, and that plan isn't for this real estate.
You also changed the lot frontage minimum from 35 to 32.
Right, and we may change that back because with these lots right in here, these two in particular, and this one, because we're on the bulb of that cul-de-sac, it got in tighter than the 35 feet, so we were asking for 32. If we modify to the other configuration, that may change back.
All right.
Are you through with your
Yes, sir.
remarks? Okay. Then we're open for comments from Plan Commission members. The option that you've just described that we haven't seen, where instead of fanning out around a cul-de-sac, the streets would continue north-south and all of the lots would be oriented east-west. How does that street terminate at the north end? There isn't a cul-de-sac of any sort, or is there?
It would still be two cul-de-sacs, but the bulb of the cul-de-sac would be further north with the lots splayed off that north side, and they would end at the termination of the cul-de-sac.
All right, so it doesn't have to have a T in it for backing up and practicing three-point turns or anything like that?
No, it just allows us to, I mean, when Pulte, we received comments at the neighborhood meeting, and Pulte began to say, how can we help address these items? And then when they met with the Andersons and their neighbor to the north, they shared with them the direction they were moving on the plan. They also told them that they wouldn't see that tonight because we're already published notice for public hearing in front of the Plan Commission,
Right.
collecting comments today on the plan that was published for notice. And after today's meeting, we would circle back with them and internally as a team and come up with a plan that we would share with you at that workshop meeting.
Okay, very good. Other commissioner questions or comments for Mr. Dobashewitz?
This is Jenny. I'll jump in.
Please, go ahead.
One of my questions for John was I haven't had a chance to compare the original PUD ordinance for Kimblewick to this Phase 2 one. You said everything is the same, except I've just heard that the frontage is 32 versus 35 feet. So I will be going over everything line by line to see if there are differences. And go ahead.
Well, all the standards with regard to dwelling architecture are the same. The one instance where there was a modification was that 35 down to 33 or 32 feet for the cul-de-sac.
Sure, and I understand that. Maybe something that needs to vary occasionally. I've heard a lot of good comments from the public. It sounds like you are going to be working with the neighbors to the north to address those, and I'm glad to hear that. It'd be interesting to see what those ideas are at the workshop meeting. I'm sure this will go to a workshop meeting. I am also interested in hearing what you might, well, let me jump back to the thing that jumped out at me first, was that in Kimblewick, there are several different housing designs and plans, several different series, I guess you will. And apparently this is going to be all one series, the Keeneland series, which is, from what I hear the speaker saying, the lower end. Not that it's a low-end house, but that it's the lower end of the different series. Is Kimblewick itself have clusters of different series, or are they mixed about? And if they're mixed about, why can't we do that here? I guess that's one question, and I have more, but I'll let you address that first.
There are clusters, and at the committee meeting, I think we can bring you a plan that shows that.
Okay, because it does seem like if, all of those in one area kind of isolates this from the rest of the community and makes it kind of a separate thing, which is a little concerning.
Let me interrupt for just a second for
Sure.
a related question, if John knows the answer. Where is the nearest example of the clusters of this same housing stock?
Two streets to the south near the entrance on Town Road. So let me pull that up. Here we go. Well, it's an older aerial.
So that would be...
I'll pull you a better image from
Old
GIS.
Rosenfield Lane.
You have the overall plan for, can we see the overall plan for the lots for Kimblewick? I know that was on one of the slides. Oh, I guess I'm supposed to be seeing if I'm talking right. Here I am. Sorry.
It would be the home and designs as you enter off of Town Road. If you took the first left after you entered off of Town Road, that street that works back and then runs parallel with 151st. So if you're following along, Dr. Kelleher, if you can see on the screen, I would come in here off of Town Road and turn left, and this is a pocket or a section,
Okay,
if you will.
section of those. Is there a picture of the whole Kimblewick and the layout? It was in your presentation somewhere, I think, wasn't it?
It may just be this aerial. Again, if
That,
not, I think it's
of
just
the
the
center?
aerial. No, we don't have a better, this is a 2022 aerial. I think 23 is available today, but only
If you
in
could bring that
draft.
maybe to the committee meeting so I can, because I remember the layout of Kimblewick was pretty good with a lot of open space and between things, and very few actually backed up to each other. So I'd kind of like to see that at the workshop, if you don't mind bringing that,
Certainly.
to see how this compares. Lots of other things were talked about. I know drainage you will take care of. The trees to the north, I think discussion, you've said you would save those that don't need to be removed for construction purposes, which to me means very little. Not that that's not your intent, but they could all have to go. And then I guess you're going to replace those with a landscaping berm, which I'll take a look at. I had a busy weekend, so I didn't get to
Right.
go over.
If there's competition, if you will, between picking up the stormwater and preventing it from traveling north onto the adjoining owner and preserving trees, some trees may need to be removed for us to accommodate that, but they're working now to identify that tree line and then determine what trees, if any, that they'll have to remove to get us to pick up the stormwater.
Right, no, and I understand that. You've got to take care of the stormwater first. But then there is a landscape plan for that northern border too. At least that's what you're showing on this picture that's in front of me right now.
Right.
And I'll review that. The sewer will be coming not from that, will it be coming from the existing Kimblewick, or will it be coming off of that line from the lift station?
It'll come from the existing Kimblewick.
Okay, so it'll
So
come along the.
the sanitary easement that I was talking about is an easement along our north perimeter right here. And
Right,
it's a force main, and we wouldn't connect to that. We would connect internally, and then it would be transmitted over to the location of the lift station. Another thing I just asked Mr. Ramage about was we also, in addition to the plantings along that north perimeter, we're not asking for any credit for trees that are saved along the north perimeter. We would do all the plantings that are required in the ordinance on top of that. So again, our plan is to only remove if necessary for stormwater, but in addition to that, in the area you see the tree line as well as other scattered plantings, that's the area that we would do the additional plantings that would be, that would meet the ordinance regardless of preservation of existing trees.
Right. And can I ask why there isn't an entrance onto Town Road here? I mean, there would have been one allowed for a church. And I know that, you're constructing internally, but there's a whole lot of people in this subdivision and they only have one way out. So is there?
But there's two ways out of the neighborhood. One, there's a primary entrance on Town Road, and then there's also a primary entrance on 151st Street. The area of Kimblewick to the south of 151st Street has access over to 151st Street here, but there's an entrance here on 151st, and that's been improved from that location over to where the city's constructing the roundabout. There's still some rough spots because construction of the roundabout hasn't started yet, but all along here is a brand new cross-section, and there's been additional pavement improvements and access improvements along Town Road. So two entrance points there, 1, 2 within the site. When we met with the city engineer and Public Works and showed them the plan, they were supportive of not having another conflict point along Town Road because it's a primary arterial. Their desire was to, and I wouldn't call it their desire, their position was that it would be more favorable to have it internally connected to the neighborhood rather than creating that additional conflict point.
Okay, thanks. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any other virtual attendees that would like to jump in now? We don't want to overlook you. Everybody's quiet. Anybody to my right? Okay, Kristen?
John, you had mentioned, what is the density overall right now at Kimblewick?
It's authorized 2 homes per acre, and it's short 15 lots. So
it's
there's
2 per acre?
there's 475 lots today. As authorized, it's 490. And it's 2 homes per acre as authorized under the existing PUD. It doesn't give that number, it gives the the cap at 490. So I don't think you'll see you won't see a number in the existing Kimblewick PUD that is the density. Here's the acreage, here's the number of homes, and if you do the math, it's 2 homes per acre.
That's all I wanted. So I think this is 43 units and 16 acres,
It is,
and I'm getting that at 2.68.
and I agree with your math.
Okay,
And and as I indicated in the presentation, the overall within the community, because there's 15 unbuilt, so now across all of Kimblewick, as I indicated in the presentation, there would be a total of the 43 plus, it would be 526, if I'm doing my math correctly, and that acreage, units divided by acreage is 1.98 something. It's less than the overall today. But again, it's all for the purpose of taking one number and dividing it by another. But there's 43 lots on 16 acres here, and overall, the translation is less than 2 homes per acre overall Kimblewick PUD because of the 15 unbuilt.
so it's 475 are what you plan to build, right, on the current Kimblewick?
That's the current
Not what's in
number.
the PUD, but what you can,
Well, I apologize. 490 is the number that can be built.
490 is the number that can be built, but you're only going to build 475.
That's the plan as platted today.
Okay. And then do we remember how many acres that is?
It is
So
490,
245?
yes,
Okay.
which gets us to the 2.0 on 490.
Yep. But this new one's at 2.68. We're in agreement on that, right? 43 divided by 16?
If that's what our calculator tells us.
Somebody else could do it too. I've got 2.68. So, okay, so the density is higher there than it is on the overall group. So I'm just trying to
So if, like,
understand that.
I think Dr. Kelleher brought this up, or Cindy Spoljarek did. There's area of the plan that are 1 home per acre along the west side.
I
and
recall
there's-
that.
There's areas of the plan that are considerably higher than 2 homes per acre, probably north of 2.5 homes per acre on other areas because of the 1 home per acre plan along the west perimeter.
And as we move inward also from 146 into 32, density is supposed to decrease. So even so, as we move forward, the density is supposed to go down as you go to the center. That's what it says on the comp plan. Okay, so let's move on and talk a little bit about where the site is, because you were talking about it being across the street from Westchester and then the neighbors to the north. Really, in actuality, this site,
Well, in my presentation, I noted that there was the one community to the east is Westchester, and then I did indicate other single-family homes. I think it's the Adams. I think that may be their last name. They attended our neighborhood meeting. They own these couple houses right here that are adjacent to Town Road.
right? So this site actually is adjacent to or across the street to the east to an AGSF1 property. And to the north, you're against 2 other AGSF1 properties. So we're not seeing any kind of transition in this plan because this plan, as I read it in the PUD, is not in substantial compliance. So
The ordinance requires substantial compliance with this plan. We couldn't vary from the plan that we're showing you without returning back to the council for consideration.
I didn't see that in the PUD. Is that in there, that it's in substantial compliance?
I'm seeing nods from staff. We can identify the section.
Okay. So those lots that are transitioning, do we have a size on those lots that you're showing that are bigger
Which lots?
to the north?
The lot size within the area will be consistent in this section.
So those aren't big, those aren't larger, somehow they look larger to me, to the north on this than the ones to the south, the lots?
It could be optics, and they could be modestly larger, but they're all intended to meet the same standard. The enhancement that we were talking about is within the common area space. There's between, I believe, 60 and 140 feet along this, as it's illustrated today. But again, we're working at a revision that would create a more consistent buffer along that north perimeter.
Okay, so those are all 5,000 or whatever you have is the
The ones
minimum.
along the cul-de-sac may be a little bit larger. They may be 7, but I would say generally between the 56, 75, if that was the number we plugged in there, which is the standard in Kimblewick, that may be the lot size.
I understand why Pulte wants to extend and do this. I'm just really concerned about our transitions and buffers, as I always am, with the AGSF1 neighbors. And, you know, I don't think 40 feet's enough, given the density of this plan. And I know the PUD says no mounding, and I don't know if that was something that they requested, that there's no mounding, or is that just your?
It was a standard within the Kimblewick development, and one that was requested of us as part of the original plan. The idea was for more landscaping and not mounds, which again was a request that was made of Pulte Homes as part of the original zoning.
I don't think you butted up against too many AGSF1 neighbors, did you?
It was all AGSF1 which surrounded the development. I'm not trying to be argumentative, I just know that the answer to the question.
On the original Kimball?
Yeah, everything surrounding Kimblewick was AGSF1, except for if we zone Westchester before that, which may have been the case, so on the other side of Town Road was Westchester.
Kristen?
Yes?
It's Jimmy. I can jump in here because I worked with them on that. The land to the west of the original Kimblewick, a lot of it was in the southwest rural or in that transition area. And the neighbors said that along there, buffers would not be appropriate because they wanted it to look more natural. So instead of a berm, I'm sorry, not a buffer, but instead of a berm, they made a wider buffer yard to transition with space rather than a berm and height, which they didn't feel looked natural in transitioning into AGSF1. So John is right. They requested that there not be a berm along that west side, but rather space. And I think it was in some places up to 200 feet. And it was going to be park-like areas. Is that correct, John?
Yes.
Okay.
I remember having this discussion as well, that
Okay.
buffer needed
I
to be
wasn't on the
measured not
commission
in
at that
tens
time.
of feet, but hundreds of feet.
Right.
And
Not that berms may not be appropriate in other sections here. I'm not arguing for or against a berm up here. I'm just saying that's why there was not a berm along the western border.
if you go back to the original PUD, you'll find an exhibit about in the middle of the document, Exhibit C, that has a dashed yellow line around this whole area that depicts where that substantial buffer would be. It's
Yeah. So I guess I just want to say to these neighbors that are here tonight that there's options for your buffers. There's fences, there's mounding, there's more landscaping. And so you should try to work with the petitioner as much as you'd like to on the buffer, on your buffer.
If I can only ask to elaborate, I cringe when you said fences. You don't mean like a shadow box fence along the, I guess what is your thought when you said fences?
I don't have a thought. I'm just asking that Pulte work with these neighbors.
And we will continue that.
On,
It's
This is a very
6
high,
foot- 6 foot-
2.68 against a .33. We have no transition and a 40-foot buffer. It's not appropriate. So however anybody wants to work together, if they can say to me, I think this is appropriate, then, but right now, 2.68 against a .33, when we say over and over transitions and buffers, right now, I can't support this. So I'll move on to my other issues here. The fronting landscape, I think the PUD says 65% would have the fence. Why would we not run it all the way down?
It's going to be carried as it is today. I think it's 100% along that frontage.
I do too. I think it's one of our prettiest frontages in Westfield, honestly. I mean, I've said that before. It's beautiful. So I just don't know why we're saying we're only putting 65%.
Yeah, and Rex just reminded me, if we do if we're able to accommodate the construction entrance, of course, that wouldn't be fenced off for construction, but we'd pick it up and leave it open for pedestrian access.
Just, I mean, it would just be a small Rex on the pedestrian. Okay, so it would look right all the way down. So I think what I'm hearing, and I don't know that it's clear or documented in the PUD, is that the intent is to carry that all the way down. Okay. Okay, so if we can
We'll change the
tighten
PUD
that
to
up,
reflect that. Yep.
that would be fantastic. So there was also, at one point, I think, some thought that this part of this neighborhood that's next to 146th Street was kind of broken off and had a sunset clause. But I believe that Pulte has decided to go ahead and do the homes in that area, correct?
I need help. I'm not familiar with what you're talking about.
On the section that's next to 146th Street, I think there was part of the PUD that was
Everything
like it
on,
would revert back, or
everything on the existing Kimballwick is platted and under development, and all the homes are constructed. All but a few are constructed along along Town Road, north of 151st Street. There are very few, probably 30 homes that are constructed today south of 151st.
right, okay. So I guess I just want to ask a question about the amenities. We've had some questions, not at Kimballwick, but at another empty nester neighborhood in the city where there's been concerns. Is there capacity? It's the best way to say it, for the amenities. So now that you are doing the whole PUD, would there be capacity to add these homes?
Yeah, so the facility that was constructed at Kimballwick was oversized to accommodate additional homes, and Del Webb's experience is that it's a much higher or larger facility than what they normally construct. That's just an example. I think the development you're referring to is Osborne Trails, and Osborne Trails, as originally planned, was 500 lots. We represented the petitioner, and they came back and added 200 houses along Tomlinson Road, and no, it's not Tomlinson, it's one to the east. And then they added another 100 lots, so there's total 800 there. Their facility is about 14,000, about 11,000 square feet. And the facility here is 14,000 square foot that services, 500 and a fraction homes versus 800. That's the answer, I guess.
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
And if you
You've
haven't been
answered
out
that.
to see this facility, it just opened a couple weeks ago on a Saturday.
I heard it was about to open.
And this is resort quality construction. There's an indoor pool. There's also an outdoor pool at that location. It's pretty elaborate, and I would encourage the Plan Commission, if they have an opportunity, if they haven't, to get out there and take a look at the space.
I'd live in it. It is quite nice. I did
Sounds like we have a buyer over
take
here.
a look. I mean, in the common area, in the clubhouse. I think it's big enough I could hide there long enough too, you might not notice.
John, I think those are all my questions tonight. Thank you.
Any other comments from commissioners to my right? Mr. McCarty?
I'll just be short, and I think a lot of my concerns were said by the public, so I appreciate you all coming out and saying so, not just those that have been residents outside of Kimblewick, but those that live in Kimblewick as well. So appreciate everyone's comments and concerns, and I look forward to just diving into this at the workshop meeting. So,
Thank you. Anything further to my left? No?
Rob, it's Jenny again.
Jump in.
I wanted to listen to everybody's comments, and I agree with everybody else and the public. When I look at this site, and we're looking at the picture right now of the entire Kimblewick and the site, and I remember what we went through along the western border with transitioning into the southwest rural. And as I look at this individual site that we're talking about this evening, you have ag across the street to the east. You have several large lot ag to the north. In fact, this is kind of a transition into a very large area of ag lots, with the exception of course, Bent Creek, which is 15,000 square foot lots. It's a straight SF2 rezone. So my concern, John, just the biggest generalist concern I have is that there are too many houses on this site. It does not allow you to transition to the north to a group of ag lots that will probably remain that way for years to come. So rather than concentrating so much on, asking for a 200-foot buffer, which is of course crazy, I wouldn't do that. But I think you got too many lots. I think you need to decrease the number of lots and increase the buffer or the transition along the north. And how you do that, I will leave up to you and Pulte and the neighbors. Thanks.
Thank you. Dave Schmitz, Mike.
One
Go.
more last thing. It would be more appropriate for this density to be along 146th Street rather than Uptown Road into this area. So I don't know what your plans are for that southern portion along 146, but this density would be more appropriate down there. Thanks.
Okay. Dave or Mike? Anything?
Yeah, it was Mike chiming in here, I guess, at this point.
Please.
I share some of the same concerns that Kristen and Jenny share with respect to the density of that area. I think the density fits in nicely if we were to take a look at Kimblewick as a self-enclosed project. But when we take a look at the bordering neighbors in this specific area, I do have some concerns. So I'll leave it at that, and I look forward to seeing what type of remake we can do at the workshop. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Schmitz, anything?
Just that I think the plan, it sounds like, is kind of in a state of flux, and there's going to be some significant changes. So I just look forward to waiting and hearing and seeing what those adjustments and modifications are. That's all for tonight. Thanks.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next step is a workshop when you are ready. And the first opportunity, obviously, is a couple of weeks. I'm not sure. It sounds like you're going to be able to be ready. What are your thoughts? Kevin?
It wouldn't be anyway. It's 6 weeks out.
Oh, okay.
First opportunity would be July 17th.
Okay. So I was getting a little aggressive there.
We'll be here no sooner than July 17th.
No sooner than?
July 17th.
Oh, July 17th is what you said. Okay.
John, may I just, this was my confusion, which we can work out at the workshop on the concept plan, but it just says the distribution of varied lot sizes as depicted on the concept plan is subject to change.
Right, they could get bigger. We don't have to have the 43 lots that we're asking for authorization to do. If we elected to make the lots larger, we could have fewer than 43. So that layout is the layout that's required. The lot sizes could change only to become larger with fewer lots.
Okay.
We didn't want to have this plan authorized and then Pulte decide, well, we've changed course and we want to provide larger lots and then have to come back through the process with the Planning Commission and Council only to ask for something that would seem not an issue.
And that's how you read it, Kevin?
Let me look at it.
It seems they could come back with larger lots as long as the configuration was similar.
And that's what we wanted to provide clarification of in the ordinance, so that's the way it's written out. That's the reason it's written that way.
I just didn't read it that way. I was reading it as you could move those houses around, and I thought if we have neighbors that think, you know, on both sides of you, that think the houses are going to be in a certain spot, and all of a sudden they kind of move. That was,
So it was the
that
same
was
thing.
just how I interpreted it, and as long as staff doesn't, then that's
Yeah.
great.
It was the same thing we did for the original. We didn't identify, here was the pocket of this lot size, and here's what area with a little bit larger and a little bit larger. We just established a standard, which was the baseline.
We can work it out in the workshop and give Kevin time to
Yeah, let
look
me
at
look
it.
at it. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, I think we have taken care of tonight's business. Public hearing has been completed. You have notes, you have our thoughts. And July 17th is the early date to be back, or whenever it is after that you might be ready if you're not then.
All right, thank you.
So, thanks for your time. So that is our last, that was our only public hearing item. Everything else is continued to a future meeting, which then takes us to the point of our agenda where Plan Commission member comments. Anything in general that we might need to discuss is in front of us. Is there anybody that has thoughts that we need to chat about? Hearing none, is there any kind of a downtown update that you might need to provide, Kristen? You're shaking your head sideways. Okay, council liaison, did you have a meeting?
We did not have a
I
meeting.
didn't think you did.
We will be meeting Monday.
I'm aware of that. But BZA did meet, so who has a report from BZA? Dave Schmitz remotely or Victor here?
Yeah, I should. I I forgot that we had one since then. We did have 4 variance petitions, 5 actually, pretty big agenda that were approved. On Penn Street, there was a parking lot that was approved to support the retail building that's on 32 across from Field Brewing. That property owner owns some property on Penn Street, and they're going to use a temporary parking lot back there. They've lost a few spaces because of the 32 expansion. That was approved. There was a 5-foot encroachment into a rear yard setback to accommodate a smart pergola on Buchanan Lane, Claiborne, in this Del Webb community, actually, that we discussed tonight. The library, the new site for the library sought a variance to use native grasses instead of the required shrubs in the islands within the parking lot. That was approved. There was a variance to subdivide a 2-acre property on Shady Nook Road into 2 residential lots. My recollection is that it's existing as a 2-acre lot now, and they subdivided to 2 1-acre lots. That was approved. And let's see, on Greyhound Pass, the old Marsh building, the Academy Sporting Goods that is being constructed in there, they needed a variance to permit a high-intensity retail use. It was kind of an oddball circumstance of why it was necessary, because it had a high-intensity retail use before, but it was the overlay plan that was approved after the Marsh went in. And so Marsh didn't have to comply with it, but Academy does, so they sought a variance, which they obtained. And that was it.
Wondering why that was on there. I did not understand that. It's a good thing it got approved because they're well along in construction. So, all right. You gonna crawl into the upper bunk now and go to sleep?
You betcha.
Okay. Plat Committee has not met in a while and isn't going to meet too soon, possibly, but no report there, which takes us then to Community Development Department. Any words of wisdom for us?
Nope, nothing tonight.
Nothing tonight.
Sorry.
I'm crestfallen here. So, all right, having dispensed with all of our responsibilities, it is now time for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
There- No delaying there. All right, who was that? Victor, motion, and second was Spoljarek. So, call the roll, if you would, please, Community Development?
Mr. Horke,
Yes.
Mr. Johns,
Yes?
Ms. Kelleher,
Yes.
Mr. Merrick's absent, Mr. McCarty,
Yep.
Mr. Schmitz,
Yes.
Ms. Spoljarek,
Yes.
Ms. Berkman,
Yes.
and Mr. Deck.
Yes.
Excellent. Meeting is adjourned at 8:11 PM.